to the Quiet Warrior Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
Well, we're live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. My name is Tom Dutta. I'm the host today. I'm also a film producer, and I am exciting. We're talking about real news here. This is episode number 2 about the making of the film, The Way of the Quiet Warrior. Excited to bring on to the show today Josh Menning, who is an award-winning director and the founder of Menning Films. Josh, welcome.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm excited to talk about a few things with this project. It's definitely been in the works for a little while, and we're just kind of churning away here.
That's awesome. Well, I want to just build you up a bit there. Everybody, Josh is an award-winning director. We don't say that lightly. You can take a look at his website. He's done multiple films. Josh, we're going to ask you to brag a bit and tell us about a couple of those titles. One recently came out, Song of the Tree Frogs. These are films, everybody, that have won some international recognition, have been nominated. There's awards, and there's a lot more to what's coming up. And so, Josh, I'm going to just turn the spotlight on you now and maybe just tell us about why you got into the film industry.
Sure. Yeah. So my wife and I, as you can see, whoops, right here, wrong side here. So we've been wedding photographers since 2011, and it was just something that we had interest in. We never really had any formal training in photography. So we had a successful wedding photography business, still going now. But around 2014, 2015, I started getting interested in video. However, I didn't want to do any wedding videography or anything like that. I was more interested in telling the story behind businesses. So I started embarking in a kind of like a video promo business that would kind of tell the story of the business in a documentary style way, not so much what they offer as far as services, but kind of going behind the scenes of what the company's all about and their mission and how that, plays throughout their whole business. So I did a couple of videos for that. But then I started getting interested in possibly shooting a film. Obviously, most people love movies, and so did I. And I was just like, well, I've never been on a movie set. I've never, shot really anything to this scale, but let's try it out. So I wrote a script. Again, never had any formal training with that. But so I produced this short film. We filmed it in 3 days. It was just a story about some local legends. It's a supernatural thriller. But so we had a showing of 2 back-to-back showings at the local theater for the film, and both of the showings sold out, and the theater seats 420 people. So wow. I thought, well, maybe there's something behind this. So let's just kind of keep going and see where this takes us. So and the next year, I wrote a faith-based film with a full feature called Unwavering. And that won numerous awards at the Christian Film Festival. And so from there, I just kind of kept going and kept learning and, taking on a bunch of material that I could to kind of really understand the movie business. Because at that same time with that movie Unwavering, this distribution deal that I signed wasn't a very good distribution deal, very naive to the whole distribution side of things. So that was a huge learning step for me, getting into you have the creative side of the business, which is great. Making the film, all the ideas, the stories, the actors, the effects, all that stuff. It's, that side is great. However, if you can't keep going on the business side of things, then, your expensive hobby soon starts to run out of money.
Yeah, I want to just jump in there and talk about that for a minute. That I think in every sector, we'll talk about me in a moment too, that there's bad actors, no pun intended. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the things that in this industry I've realized. I've talked to many people, and there are several stories of things going wrong. And in my choice, looking for a film company to work with in the project we're talking about, it was really important about integrity and trust. And also, you are in a world where you're married to someone who's a lawyer. I know she's a prosecutor, but I mean, when you have somebody as a professional who comes from the side of integrity, it's always a benefit. So I want to talk about just your passion of filmmaking before we get into screenplay. That how did you teach yourself? Did you go to film school to learn? Because I'm just going to say something here that's going to honor the work you've done. I watched a film, everybody, called Gateway to Hope that Josh Menning produced, and it set my soul on fire. It was about the opioid crisis, which is on our streets in Vancouver, British Columbia here. Josh is in Ohio. And what I saw in the film was mesmerizing. I mean, the quality of it, the way it was put together. And I knew that there was something special about the eye behind the camera. I'm a dreamer, and I think filmmaking to me is about dreams coming true. How did you learn? Did you go to film school, or are you self-taught?
So yeah, basically, I didn't go to any school or anything like that. I did have a couple of online courses that I went through to, again, understand lighting for film, stories, and as you mentioned, Gateway to Hope, which thanks for the kind words. Definitely appreciate that. I started seeing that how much a story can impact somebody's life, and with Gateway to Hope, to see how these former addicts totally overcame heroin addiction, and just kind of a segment on that. My whole goal for that was to help one person completely break the addiction. So on the grand premiere that we had, there was a girl who stood up in the theater, same theater that I had the first showing of the other film. And she said that she struggled for addiction for many years. And basically 2 weeks later, she filled out the paperwork and went away for 12 months to completely go and get completely clean. So wow. Still to this day, we're having people call. We mentioned some of the help that is available. But we've had people all across the country. We've had people from the UK calling. This one guy sent his daughter locally here to go to a freedom home to totally cure her addiction. So that has had a huge impact on people. So with that, getting into the narrative side of films, that, video and film is one of the, biggest influences, if not the most, that could influence the world. So as I started seeing that and started seeing, kind of connecting dots, and, again, networking is a huge part of the business as well. But if you have the means and you have the talent and you have the people that you can surround yourself, then, making a film starts to put on a totally new face, not just, telling a cool story, working with great people, but now you're starting to become an influence into the world around you, to the surrounding communities, and even further from that. So seeing that things can have a global impact with what you're doing, that's really the driving force behind a lot of decisions that whenever it comes to looking at screenplays, looking at ideas, is that driving force, is that going to be, just a fun project to work on, which, again, nothing wrong with that. There's a couple of fun projects that I've done, but looking whenever something can have a global impact and change people's lives. And that's where, my interest as a filmmaker, as a director, that's where it kind of keeps the passion, keeps the fire going.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And everybody, that's one of the reasons why we connected, because all the work I do in my platform, Josh, as you know, is about a global impact. From doing a TED Talk to writing a book, I don't do anything unless it's purposeful to change or make a shift in thinking and help. I always say help one person at a time. I was looking for a global platform, the next level, to take all the work I've done, and through a series of, I guess I'll call it fortuitous intersections, you and I met. I just want to mention that for a minute. A good friend of ours, he's a film producer working in this film, John Kitson. John read my book. He's a fellow author. Our books had similarities in the storyline right up front. And I think John introduced me to you, Josh, and part of that was for you to come on my radio show and talk about Gateway to Hope. And a year or so later, the idea popped in my head that, hey, wait a minute, we have something in the Way of the Quiet Warrior let's try it on, see what Josh might think. So let's jump to that now. Let's talk about that. What I'm in the publishing industry as well. Thousands of manuscripts are presented to publishers. Less than 1% get chosen. Why did you chose the Way of the Quiet Warrior? Tell us about the background and your thinking.
Sure. So, as I was going through and reading the book, and this was even way before we started getting deep into making this a film project. There were some ideas thrown out there, but as I started reading through the book and just seeing, there were a lot of universal things in there that people can connect with about really defining who they are. But with the little stories that were inside of the book, I really connected with those. So as I got to talk to Tom and hearing a lot more about those stories and what they meant to him and what they're truly about, that's whenever I started getting super interested in this. And being a business owner myself, putting a face on with social media or whatever platform that we're trying to, we always try to put like the highlight reel, just so that people don't necessarily see the normal everyday life, because a lot of the times people, I guess, tend to shake that off or not be totally interested in that. However, we started seeing something whenever we would post a little bit more personal items, personal blogs with our photography business about ourselves, about our lives, then people started connecting with that because you can go look at any photographer, any business or whatever, it's just another business. You can go through the pictures, you can go through the products. But once you start to connect with that person on a personal level, then I think emotionally that helps you to connect a lot more and helps you to see the world through their eyes. So going through the Way of the Quiet Warrior book, I started seeing some of those situations. And after receiving a binder from you, Tom, about, the stories and how they met and how they impacted your life at that time, then I, again, started seeing the world through your eyes. And that's what I think a lot of the times people fall short and, are quick to judge people because it's hard to see what they're going through, which granted is a difficult thing. So as we kind of kept driving and looking into the story and dissecting things, it just, wow, it could have such a great impact on people that are truly struggling with a mental illness, or just, maybe it's not totally severe to where they need medical help or anything like that. But what a way that we could kind of change the perspective and change the view that people that are going through things maybe personally that they haven't even talked to anybody about, maybe this is an opportunity where they could reach out to really resolve some of the issues that they're having, or just, again, business owners and people not being afraid to say, hey, I'm not okay. So as we, kept diving into this project, all those things kind of came a lot more prevalent for me. So, just I forget what their original question is, but I kind of kept going on there. But
no, that's inside the mind of a creative man. I mean, where our brains are three-dimensional. So now I want to just talk about the book, and this is unique for me. Everybody, I'm a little vulnerable because I'm speaking about myself and my book, and I don't like to brag about the work I've done. I'd rather you read it. But for all my fans, we've come together in partnership here, Josh, Mending Films and Create, my company, to do this. And I wouldn't go with any other director unless they bought into me. And Josh, that's one of the things when I published my book. A lot of people don't know this, but in the pub industry, the publishers buy you before your book. And the other thing that they put you to a high test, if you self-publish, it's easier. You can get it out there. But they say, tell us about your platform. And I always wondered why, but published books don't make money unless they sell. And so they wanted to know about my platform. And when I started explaining that I was just an average guy who got into business and became a high-level executive, but then I shifted and built a platform of social media and a book and a website and a radio show, and I started having an international impact. That's what the publisher wants, because then they don't market the book, you do. And so I started getting excited about how do I take the book to another level? The book itself is really about a young boy, a story of a young boy who learned the wrong rules in his childhood and took those into life to become a leader, a husband, a father. And as he went through life, he started experiencing, I'll just use the term wolves in his head eating away at his mind. And he saw the world through a different lens as the world really wasn't. But he didn't know his story was unique. He thought everybody's world was like his. And he started stumbling and falling along the way. But on the outside, people were looking at him as somebody who was ultra successful. And so the 10-year journey to write the book was all about how to, deal with those wolves, how to get unstuck and maybe make some shifts to change the rules and learn how to live and learn how to be happy and more successful. The threads in the story, as you've been getting at, are mental health. There's addiction. There's things about leadership and things about marriage and divorce and loss of a child. And every aspect you can think of is wired into the stories within The Way of the Quiet Warrior. But it helps you go from the dark side to the other side to emerge victorious. The one piece that was missing when I wrote the book was my father was still alive. He hadn't passed yet. And I hadn't dug deep enough into what faith was, understanding that there was another element of becoming unstuck. And that was, finding faith. So this all came together. So everybody, I'm dripping on you. We're not going to give away the screenplay, but I needed a place to go where there are creative minds, more creative than me, that could take it and turn it into something. So let's get into the screenplay. Josh, I know we're not going to give it away, but how do you just talk it as? How do you create a screenplay from beginning to end? What's the process? And talk about what we've done.
Yeah. So normally the way that I create a screenplay is I kind of have this kind of basis of the story structure, and I'm not sure where I found it, but it basically it talks about beats, and I'm sure if you screenwriters are watching this, or even authors and writers, that for a film to truly make sense throughout the whole story, you should have 15 main beats and altogether 40 beats. So what that means is I normally do an outline of, and kind of introducing the story, what the characters are going through, their present situation, and the problem that they're struggling with. And then, of course, you go through with the different events, the different catalysts and whatnot, and, getting to the point of where we're reaching the peak or the climax of the story, and then also our resolution. So for the most part, I mainly stick to that 15 main beat structure and then fill in the other beats to have a total of 40 beats and main points of the story. So then I normally will take that and then start to write the dialogue, start to write the action to create the screenplay. So with Tom's story, it's a little bit different because, this is based on his life and actual events. So I took that same structure and then started putting the timeline of events into the outline, so that whenever myself and John's the one that has been writing the screenplay and putting this together. So as we had that main outline, we started to see, okay, how do we kind of bounce back and forth from, in a chronological order without, being too confusing. So we know how it begins, we know where the middle is, we know where 3/4, and we know how it ends. So how do we fill, the rest of the gaps, and how does that all make sense into a screenplay? So that's kind of been the process that we've been going through. And, we've talked, we've had many Zoom meetings. John and I have met in person to talk about different ideas. And John has done a great job to assemble all of this information and put it into the screenplay that we have now. And the way that he kind of goes from the flashbacks to the present day is a really cool way. And it with that, there's a theme that's tied from the beginning all the way through the end, which again keeps the story going and keeps everything driving. But yeah, so that's kind of the normal process, is doing it. I do an outline first with the 15 main beats, fill in the other beats, so I have a total of 40, and then start to develop the action and the dialogue.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I'll take a minute to honor John again. John, everybody, if you can imagine taking a binder that's about 4 inches thick and then a ton of information plus a book. And I actually took the Way of the Quiet Warrior book and rewrote the fable chapters in it, which were actual real stories that we fictionalized to protect identity, and gave all that to Josh and John, and turning it into a screenplay is just an incredible amount of work. And in going back and forth in the editing process, it was very exhilarating, Josh, but it was also at times painful because when you're looking at something about your life, you're reading and reliving it. And I got more excited. I want to just throw this out there for you to riff on that. I think I told you that I watched a film by Elton John called Rocketman, and I'm a big film watcher, and I'm very creative in my mind, I think. And he had highs and lows in the film, but one of the things I've seen is some films are done very poorly, where the lows are so low that the audience wants to turn it off. They can't get through that. And in my recent TED Talk, I was coached about the effect of humor and why it's needed in whether it's a film or a production like a TED Talk, to allow us to release off the edge of our seats and then receive more. Talk a little bit about what we're trying to do there in terms of the humor side.
Sure. Yeah. And so just looking at the script and the story itself, it's sometimes hard to get through just some of the things that have gone on. And I just started reading through some of these humor points that have been added throughout the script. And I mean, I love dark humor. It's just there's something about it that just makes me laugh inside or laugh out loud. But to understand the seriousness of what's going on, however, not being totally sunk down to where, I just want to turn it off. So as, Tom and Noel have been working together on creating these humor points, I started reading the screenplay in a totally different tone and a totally different light. And, working with the screenplay, it's the collaboration that we have, it's kind of keeps changing and evolving and for the better, so that we can really narrow down what the story is. However, being the story is that itself, it's sometimes hard to get through because of the seriousness of it and what has happened. However, to kind of keep things moving in the story, some of these, the humor that has been added, I think, if we even expand upon it a little bit more, then I think this will be, one of those movies that just people that love dark humor will totally connect. Of course, we have the different things that the film focuses on. However, there's something about a dark humor, and if it's done in the correct way at the right times, then I think it has a huge impact, and people just, are able to soak in all the seriousness of it. However, have a chuckle inside or say, oh man, that went a little too far. However, those are things that people keep connecting with the story.
Yeah, absolutely. There's psychology behind humor too. I think those points stand out. Thanks for mentioning that too. Want to talk about just my experience becoming a business leader, and I learned when I was younger, Josh, to surround yourself with people smarter than you. And it took me a while to mature and grow up, and not think that it was all about me in my early career. And then along came experts, and that's the way forward. With the humor side, you've put a team together here that's growing, but you've brought on through our network somebody's going to work and help us who has expertise in humor. Just mention quickly about that, how we're building the film up, but it's really about working as a team, not just about one person or two people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so definitely in every film project, every project that I've done, it's a huge collaboration, from development, which we're in the stages of development because we have, this script and we're still massaging it and working in it, finessing it. So with the people that are starting to be attached to this project have been phenomenal to work with, and to know, we understand, some of the things that have gone on. How do we make the most impact with this story? So with the collaboration between, there's 4 or 5 of us right now looking at the script, looking at different things, again, making sure that, we want to stay true to the story. However, how do we make this be the most impactful film, and how do we keep it interesting and just keep everything driving all the way to the end, and just kind of keep people on the edge of their seats, kind of have them sit back a little bit, have a little chuckle, but then again, just understand that there's a message there and people will connect with that. So I think the people that we have in collaboration understand what that message is, and that as we keep kind of hashing things out with the script, everybody that's connected so far, just kind of, everybody's getting in sync, kind of hitting in those same gears. So whenever we get into the pre-production phase, and really starting to make this thing happen, then, this machine, filmmaking is looked at as a machine a lot of times. And if it's not a well-oiled machine, whenever we get to production, then obviously the machine can fall flat if it's not properly lubricated. So I think at the point where we are now with connecting the people, connecting the gears, starting to put the oil on those gears, then whenever we hit to pre-production and the production, it'll really go.
Yeah, I love the metaphor. It's almost like riding a bicycle to me. Mm-hmm. And about the part of that story, it brought me back to no, not intended, right? Right. Thank you, Josh, for that magic moment. Yeah. Everybody, you won't know what we're talking about till you see the film evolve. So I just want to, kind of get everybody excited that the next episode of Real News, this is the second one, will be. I'm going to bring you back on, Josh. I don't think I said that yet, but in February, with the fellow that we're working with on the humor side, and just to have a conversation about that. What I want to do is we have about 4 minutes before we wrap up on this, is just ask you about the next steps. I mean, just realize people watching this maybe don't know about filmmaking. Mm-hmm. I'm learning all this, but we're at the first stage, screenplay. What comes next?
So yeah, after we're totally locked in with the screenplay, where everybody's in approval, we have the final edits in place, then normally what I do is I'll start to break down the script. So I'll go from the beginning all the way to the end, break down all the different items. There can be, other positions, whether it's assistant director, line producer, a whole bunch of other people that can do this type of work. However, what we do is each scene, each thing that's going on, whether we're at a certain location, there's certain set dressing, there's wardrobe, there's characters, there's different props that we need. We have different locations. So all of that, I take the script to break that down so we can kind of get basically a line item of all the elements of the film. So from that breakdown, we can then go into developing our budget on some of the items that will be locked in place, the for sure items that we know how much will cost. Then we can start looking at the different actors, the different people associated with the film, and see where their day rate or what their amount usually is. So then we can kind of incorporate that into the budget. So then after we, kind of lock down what our budget is, then obviously the next step is to secure the financing. And then in that same time, we go about pre-production as far as scouting locations, start talking with some actors and kind of narrowing down the cast and the crew. As far as gathering the materials with props, any set dressing that we do, wardrobe designers, I mean, the list can kind of go on and on. So, but the next step is to break down the script so we can develop the budget. Then we can have a huge, game plan to go from there, because the script is basically the Bible of the film. And usually with that breakdown, whenever I go to film a scene or when we go into a day of production, I have a breakdown list of everything that we're filming that day, and the props, the wardrobe, the whole 9 yards. So this next step is probably one of the most crucial steps of the whole process, because it's the whole game plan, the whole Bible for the entire pre-production all the way into post-production. So that will be the next step after everything's locked in with the script.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. Just a couple of things to add there. We're honored that you've made a decision to look to filming in Canada, not just the U.S. Being a Canadian, tell us just quickly what you see in our country, because you've seen some of the visual things I've shown you. Obviously, I'm a Canadian, so the culture in the film needs to be there.
Sure, and I've definitely seen. I've only been in Canada once, and that was Niagara Falls. So for whatever that vision is, but obviously seeing different films and different movies that have been shot up there, and just the backdrop up there, and it's totally interesting to me to go up there and to be able to film something with the landscape and the people. It gets me really excited that it's something different other than United States. However, the United States is really awesome, but having the opportunity to go up into Canada will be a really cool experience.
Yes, the United States is very awesome. Thank you. We're your biggest neighbors, and Canada is very awesome as well. I think we agree on that. Josh and I talked about this, everybody, that, my dreams are big with this film. It's not about me, but it's about creating an epic film, and I don't use that lightly. In fact, I said to myself, Josh, before we talked about this, that if the director that chooses me doesn't want to think that big, then it's not for me. This is a film that will create a legacy, but we wanted to touch people around the world. And the only way I felt that it can do that, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the film needs to move. It needs to be seen. It needs to be out there. And from all the films I've watched, anything with spectacular scenery, incredible acting, incredible directing, and music, amazing music. I remember all that stuff, and I want to go back, and films that can put me into the journey and at the edge of my seat. Films particularly sometimes that have imagery where I've never been in the world, and it makes me want to come back and see it again. That's the look and feel that I wanted, and I think you and I connected very well on that dream. We dream big, and we look to get funding, and then we go from there. If we have to adjust, we adjust. Josh, as we wrap up here, I want to just ask you the last question here is just anything you want to tell the audience about the COVID-19 and the timing of filming, how that's impacting your world.
Yeah, so unfortunately, last year there were a couple of different projects that we were going to take on. One was a television pilot, a couple of films. However, everything has been on hold for now, on standby, just because every time I've tried to start scheduling things, then the lockdowns get a little bit tighter. And some of the restrictions with some of the unions, it kind of makes, being an independent filmmaker really hard to do a production without, being worried about following all these regulations and not focusing on the story. So with that in mind, as things are rolling out with the vaccines and just kind of, the way that the world is just it's such a strange time to, look at these projects and knowing what you want to do with them or the potential that they have. However, that kind of is put on the side burner because with the uncertainty, it's just really hard to start locking things in. And I've definitely realized that this past year with, I've tried to force getting things to be done, but the more and more I did that, the more and more they got pulled back. So I think it's definitely a time that God's trying to remind us to trust in Him and trust in His timing. And I'm definitely doing that now and not trying to force anything or to get anything totally concrete as far as production goes until things are more in the clear.
Yeah, thank you very much. In every business, there's challenges. I was meeting with a group yesterday and having to pivot and take their business online. Let me just say this about the positive I think about that. The more people have been out of theaters and isolated at home, the more the industry struggle to move forward. When it finally does, there's going to be a huge tsunami of interested people wanting to see films and debuts. It's going to be incredible. I think you're right. We're going to step into this incredible arena, and this film is going to have a lot of opportunity when it debuts. Everybody, we're going to be doing another Real News. I'll have Josh back. We'll have a fellow named Noel Bentley with us about the humor in the film. Stay tuned. All of this will go into something. We're probably going to use something, Josh, that we're the making of the film. We'll be talking about all the next steps. So Josh, it's been an absolute honor working with you and also your knowledge and trying to teach us something today.
All right. Thanks for having me on the show. Looking forward to the next one.
All right, everybody, we're doing this as an international podcast, so we can put it out there early. It'll be made into a YouTube premiere video, and maybe it'll appear later as a documentary behind the scenes of the making of the Way of the Quiet Warrior film. And Josh, by the way, there's a website that is going to be improved and set up at some point. So maybe next time you come back, you can tell us about the website.
Sure.
All right. Thank you very much, Josh.
All right. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Live with passion, with action, and with purpose as you hear from award-winning director Josh Menning. And have a great day.
Thank you for listening to The Quiet Warrior Show. KRE-AT is a motive-based leadership development firm. www.KREAT.ca